think everyone is a networking guru already, so I don't know why I'm here. Since they don't.
They're just being shy, trust me.
Okay. All right.
And that's one of the things I guess you will let them know. You can't be shy when you're trying to network.
No, you shouldn't be. All right. I'm sure by the end of today's conversation, you guys, I think, will take a lot out of the conversation, and you would see that networking is like the success to get you. It's like the key to get you anywhere in your career. So just embrace it.
Exactly. I agree with you. And alongside GP, there's Remy. Remy would be also answering a couple of questions alongside you.
All right.
Remy is from Talk. I'm sure Franklin will talk a bit more about that, and we would have that role. But thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate it. I think one of the reasons why I made sure we brought you was I remember when, I don't just want to go into details, but I remember trying to network and speaking to you. There was an aura you had that was different from other people, and it was encouraging to see that and take that kind of experience with you and move on to other people. So I'm excited about the things you will share today. Remy, also thank you for joining us. Remy is from Talk. I want to appreciate you for creating time to join us today. I'm not going to be hosting this. I'll just quickly give you a brief lowdown of what Lane is all about, and then Franklin will take over from there. My name is Samuel Adioye, and I'm a member of Lane. And what we do basically at Lane is our major goal is to try and help people understand that the role of developing Africa lies a lot in our court, in the court of future business leaders, in the court of future political leaders. And we've seen that a large percentage of that group of people eventually do an MBA. And our goal is to try and lower that barrier of entry that many people are seeing. Another thing we're trying to do is to demystify MBA admissions, especially to people who are not coming from target places of work. For instance, where I came from, for a long time, no one in that sector wanted to do an MBA. Not because they didn't want to do an MBA, it was just because they didn't know the benefits of it. So at Lane, think of us not as a city, as an association, but as a virtual city, as a virtual small online nation, where we do our best to help our members get into MBA programs they can afford. And then not only stop there, continue to build that community even during an MBA program, and leverage that to keep depression away from our members. And even as we finish our MBA programs, we continually seek to leverage on our relationship, again, the form of networking, to continue to help our members grow so that eventually they can come back to Africa in one way or the other, as we understand that not everyone will come back to Africa physically, but their businesses can always come back to Africa. Their engagements and initiatives can always come back to Africa. And we can leverage that one voice that crosses countries and see how long and how far we can take our continent as a whole to the next level. So with that bit of introduction, Marachi would do well I'm sure she would share the link to joining the group if you're not already a member of it, and then we will take it up from there. So over to you, Franklin.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Franklin, and I will be moderating today's session. So I'll just give a little introduction about our speakers. So we have Remy and God's Power. So we have Remy. Remy is an MBA candidate at Talk Business School. And God's Power, Akala, is also an MBA candidate at Penn State Smill College of Business. For his internship, he is serving in the role as financial manager at Microsoft. And before then, he was an assistant manager.
Sorry to interrupt you, Franklin. If you could move your earpiece slightly away from your mouth, because it seems to be too close.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds better. Yeah. Go on, please.
Okay. All right. So thank you, God's Power and Remy for taking out time for this webinar. I'd also like to indulge us to please put our speakers on mouthpieces on mute so that we can have like a flawless session. So God's Power and Remy, thank you so much. Now let's just dive right into the webinar. In your opinion, what would you say is networking as it pertains to MBA application, and generally, what is networking in your opinion? How does that, how does that play out? Because I feel a lot of people have different notions about networking and how that impacts their MBA application, but we'd like to hear from you. So God's Power, I think go first.
Thank you very much, Franklin. It's nice to see what you guys are doing, trying to actually sensitize people about what to expect from the MBA program. And I think you guys are doing a great job. And even those of you that are here attending this webinar, I think you're making the right step for your future careers. And I'm sure you guys in 5 to 10 years from now, you'll see that this step you've taken has been critical in where you are, or the plateau you're going to be at that particular point in time. But frankly, going forward, you can just call me GP. You don't have to call me Gospel. So networking, to me, it's simple. Networking is one fundamental key that is critical to your career success. And especially if you're going to be in a career outside Nigeria. I understand most of you or most of the audience here are from countries where networking has not been at the forefront of you moving into the next stage of your career, or it was not even incorporated into our educational system. But if you're going to have a career outside your own country, I think networking is very, very critical. Networking is just, to me, in my own personal view, it's just a way of you meeting people, not necessarily for a particular, a particular job or for a particular admission, but you're just getting to know people. And the good thing about it is most of us on a daily basis network and we don't even know it. It's just you identifying that, okay, these are the things I do and how I can put them in more structured and professional manner to be able to get people and to be able to get me through the door to be able to achieve my own goal. I think basically just summarizes what networking is to me.
Thank you. Remy?
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm happy to be with you guys today. For me, I think I would echo what GP has just said. Every day of our lives, like, when we either like you are in an Uber or you are on a bus or you are meeting new colleagues, what we are doing at that point in time is a form of networking. The only maybe difference is that in the US and maybe in most other Western countries, to a large extent, like there's a premium that they place on it, and they've also formalized that process as well. So when you hear networking here, most of the time there's this tendency to think that, oh, this is something huge that I don't know how to do. But every one of us every day, our new friends, even the people who are on this call and even coming together to start laying, all of these things are an example of, networking, which that's the best way that I can also put it.
Right. So it's very, very important as human beings to try to network amongst ourselves and, without even the benefit as social beings, there's no way we're not going to be involved in some form of exchange. And that's what I see networking as. So let's just dive right into it. Because a lot of people have different misconceptions. For you, just give us like a little insight into the important, okay, I think we both touched on that, but in terms of the important do's and don'ts for networking and how to establish the first contact or communication with whoever we want to network with. Now, in the context of MBA applications and for that. So I think Remy should go first this time.
So for networking, the way I see it is that, there are 3 stages to it. There's what you did before the networking actually start. There's what you do like in the process of networking with someone. And then there's what you do after that has already been, completed. And for me, what I always say is that it's important to have a goal before you even commence your network. And that goal can be as simple as I just want to get to know someone, or maybe I want to find out more information about this particular school that I'm interested in. Or maybe I just want to even know whether the MBA is the right choice for me. Or maybe, I just want to hear why, after this person has left this program, why they got into this, industry or job. And that is important because it will sort of discipline you in terms of how you go about doing that. So in terms of do's and don'ts, what I tell people is that, when you're trying to network with someone, the first thing, especially maybe now that it's more of a virtual world, is either if it's through LinkedIn, if it's through maybe like a friend, if you understand what the goal is, it's important that if you're going to maybe do it through LinkedIn, just send a very short message, introduce yourself, tell the person who you are and the reason why you are connecting with them. And most importantly, maybe you can then ask for, what their availability is. And if you hear from them, which, that is important. It's one thing I always tell people is that probably, as much as you can, if you're going to speak to someone, maybe in a week's time or in 2 weeks' time, it's important to also quickly build an agenda of what you would like to, speak with them on. And also send like a meeting calendar. That some people may not be used to that, but I think that also allow that person to really take you seriously, because for them, it's either they are very busy with their current MBA program, or they are working somewhere where they also have to manage their time. And, during that, maybe that eventually when you have that call, it's important to also maybe introduce yourself again, because maybe a couple of people are trying to meet that person at that time. And also just do like a recap of what that agenda is, when you're having that call with them. And what I always say is that based on that agenda, you also have questions, that you also want to ask them around, that, we can talk about that later. And then when you are done, which is what you do after maybe this call has ended, is, send them a quick email again, just saying, thank you for speaking with me. And, as much as you can, don't see it as a one-time process. What I always do is that almost everybody that I networked with, over 2 years ago when I, prior to my MBA program, I still reach out to them even up until this time. Like, even though, like I probably don't ask them, for information as I used to before, but just to keep them updated that I'm about to start my internship now. These are some of the industries that I'm looking at. Just want to keep you updated. Maybe the person appreciates it, maybe they don't, but at least it makes it feel like as if you like that one either call or email that you had with them is really important to you, and you also value this process.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Like, I particularly vibe with what you said about asking for the availability and, having a meeting calendar, because sometimes with schedules and everything looking very scattered, it's very important to have them on schedule as well. God's power.
All right. I think Remy has said most of the points I have around the do and don'ts of networking. But for me, the way I see networking is you building a relationship. I'm just going to use an example. Hopefully people don't take offense in this. The way I see networking is you as a guy trying to approach a lady you're interested in. So
Okay.
you don't just see a lady on the streets. Oh, well, no, don't let me assume. Okay, I don't just see a lady on the street and I just walk up to her and express my interest. The first point of call is for me to actually research the person and get to know. At least the good thing about the good thing about things right now is most of your information are online. So the first point of call is just research the person. Get to know who that person is before you even have the first conversation with the person. Even before you actually reach out to the person, get to know the person to see things that you have in common, things that you can also use as icebreakers when you enter the actual conversation. So first thing for me is research the person. And next thing is know that as you're entering or as you're having a conversation with someone, you know that you're trying to build a relationship. And honestly, my advice for everyone is show a genuine interest. I know, yes, that might not be the case every time, but just trying to show a genuine interest in the person you're trying to get to know because it shows a lot. It actually shows when you are genuinely interested in the person if you're having a conversation with them. And based off of that, the person will be more, the person you're networking with will be more vested in the relationship. If he or she can see the genuinity you're bringing into the conversation. Like Remy said, having an agenda is key. To me, a lot of people, you don't know, in a professional sense, you want to be as professional as possible. And having an agenda just shows that, oh, you're a very, very, you're actually articulated and you actually have a process and you're very, very well comported. Another thing is, in the initial conversation, don't be late. I know a lot of us just believe, oh, I can stroll into a conversation at any time. To me, I've always grown up, or even every place I've worked with, I've always had the policy that don't be late for anything. Then by the stipulated time, I'm already late. That's the way I see things myself. So I'm always there like a few minutes early. I know that might not be the case every time because people are busy, but try as much as possible to be there on time. And if for any reason you would be running late, just let the person know in advance. Don't wait till you actually jump on the call and you start apologizing to the person saying, oh, I'm sorry I'm late, this and this happened and stuff like that. It doesn't just show well on you as a person. Another thing is, if you have, like Remy said also, you have an invite. Personally, I have a belief that if you have a stipulated invite and you have a conversation, you have a time allotted for a particular conversation, don't overshoot the time allotted. Unless you've expressly asked permission from the person. Because I notice I've had conversations with people where, oh, you set a stipulated time and maybe the person came late and the person has a lot of things to ask or to go through, or the person is just carried away with the conversation. The person just keeps talking. You don't know, especially if you're not seeing the person. You don't know if the person is still interested in that conversation. You don't know if the person has another appointment right after that, and the person is just trying to be polite to you that, okay, you should recognize that you are actually passing the allotted time. So things like that are just little things I think you should take note of. Another thing I also want to hammer in your initial conversation and your first contact with the person is, especially in Western world, eye contact, good eye contact is key. People see you that if you're not making eye contact with them, people just believe that, oh, you're either lying to them or you're really, really shy. I know in most cultures outside the Western world, you don't look directly at the person's face. They feel it's intimidating or they feel it's rude. But if you're going to come into an MBA program or you're networking with people who are already in the MBA program, most of them are people who do not grow up from your locality, who do not understand those cultural things that you grew up with. So try as much as possible to maintain good eye contact with them. For things I think you shouldn't do on your first conversation, on your first contact is, you don't go jump on your first conversation with someone and say, oh, can you reference me? The admissions committee, I know they always want you to, for me to always have an alum I've spoken to or someone in the program I've spoken to. Like, can you please reference me? Oh, can you please tell the admissions committee I really love this their program. I'm really interested in coming to the school. That just put in a word for me with the admissions committee. To me, I don't think that is a conversation. That is something you should be discussing in the first conversation with someone you're networking. You don't. I'm still going to go back to my initial reference about meeting a girl and expressing your interest. You don't go to the girl on the first conversation and say, marry me. You build that conversation until it gets to that stage.
Yeah.
Another thing is, if you're going to prepare for your first conversation, please be prepared. I know a lot of us don't just like to make it to say, oh, we can have conversations. It's just to talk in English. Please try as much as possible to prepare for the conversation. You don't want to sound disoriented or disconnected during the conversation. Another thing is, please test your equipment. If it's your phone, if it's something like that, especially in this world of virtual sessions everywhere, if you are going to have a virtual session or a Zoom call, please test your equipment beforehand. You don't want it to be, oh, it's time already and Zoom is updating. And the person is there, you can't get across to the person at that time. So to me, test your equipment. And if you're going to have like a virtual session like this, there's going to be a video feed, just try to look presentable. I'm not saying you should wear a suit or a tie or dress up in the business professional sense, but just always look presentable. I think those are just the major things I just want to hammer at the end of your first conversation, and some of the do's and don'ts some of the do's and don'ts you should be aware of in that conversation.
First conversation. But thank you, Remy and God's Power. In case you're just joining us, we have God's Power, Akala, and Remy Onitelu on the webinar today, and we are speaking on networking. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them on the chat box, and I will take your questions when it's time. Then in the next 15 minutes thereabouts, Sam, I don't know if I'm correct, Zoom will be logging us out. Once that happens, please try and log in back with the link there. Okay. Now, I was going to ask a question. Owing from what you said, GP. Gospel, can I call you GP?
Please do.
Okay, all right, thanks. So GP, from what you said about networking with people and ensuring that you always come across as respectable and having respect for people's time, and also ensuring that you have that very organic connection. How do you, in terms of networking with like current students, because it's for everyone, when you're trying to network or you're trying to speak to people, one of the very vital people that you have to network with or ask questions are the people who have, been there, done that, in terms of the things that you're planning to do. So in terms of identifying the people to speak to, for example, how do you approach that? Who should you start with first, or who should you pick, or what is the strategy? Because I know in different circles, networking means different things. Under the umbrellas of, I'm applying for an MBA, and you don't know who to start with, because a lot of people just go on LinkedIn and just check anyone out, and they just start the conversation, even if they are respectful and all that. But what's the strategy? Is there like a key? How do you start? How do you approach that?
So typically the way I say it is, your first point of call, if you're seeking admissions into any school, to me, the first point of call is always reach out to the admissions office. And I think that's the first part. That's the first step you'll be taking into networking into the school. Send an email to the admissions office. say, oh, just introduce yourself. This is who you are. You're really interested in the program. And these are the qualities you think you'll be bringing into the program. And stuff like that. Just introducing yourself. When you're having you can even set up a call in that initial email saying, oh, you just want to learn more about the program, that can someone from the admissions office just find time to talk to you about it. The good thing about it is most people respond. Most admissions people always respond to that kind of email. When they respond to you, all these do's and don'ts of the first conversation is something you should just put into practice. Have the conversation with them. At the end of that conversation, what you should be asking is, oh, can you introduce me to a current student? It might be a first year or a second year that can tell me more about the program. I want to learn about their own experience in the program. To me, that's always a good way where the admissions people actually appoint someone and say, okay, talk to this particular student. They actually make the initial connection for you after you've had the conversation with them. So it's always easy. But yes, that might not be the only way to get into or to connect with current students. Like you said, LinkedIn is also a good way. And to me, yes, you may see a class of, like, the big Ivy League schools have classes of like 400 to like 1,000, and you might be lost in who to connect with. The good thing for me is, or the way I always go about it is, always look for people that you have things in common. A lot of people, it depends on how active the person is on LinkedIn. A lot of people have thousands of requests. And if you don't have a short note that actually reminds them of, oh, where we initially connected, or why they're even trying to connect with them, a lot of people just leave those empty requests and don't even attend to them. I've spoken to a recruiter once who was telling me that she had over 6,000 invites on LinkedIn. Like, there's no way she's going to accept 6,000 people on her LinkedIn. That's
right.
It. And people who have actually written notes that are things that she actually connects with. That's how she sees through the invite and just accepts those people. So you want to write a short note. I know LinkedIn has, I think your initial
the option of sending a note.
And it's always, the number of characters is usually limited. So try as much as possible to be short, precise, and leave something that is memorable for the person. Leave something that the person would always want to have that initial meet or connection with you.
Thank you so much, GP. Remy?
So some of the things that I would say also would echo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. All right. Sorry, I'm having an echo here. I'm sorry. Okay. So some of the things that I would say would echo GP. But what I always tell people as well is that GP talked about looking for common areas of interest. What I also say is that most of the time people usually focused on LinkedIn at the detriment of other social networks. I remember one of the first people that I connected with at Talk, and it was because I was following Talk on Instagram, and they had shared like a story about this person, and then I realized that this person was going to work at Nestle for his internship, and at that time I was in Nestle. So for me, it was just interesting because immediately I knew that I just went to the Nestle system and then I just searched for this person's name and I reached out to him, through that, instead of even sending me a message on LinkedIn. So, beyond LinkedIn, because, most of the time the stuff that you will probably see on LinkedIn, may be very professional, but at the same time, you want to look for common areas of interest. There are some schools that if you go to, like the type of interest or what you will see, what people are doing for fun, would even tell you whether this is a place where you can really thrive. And that is always a great place and a great opportunity to also, connect with people. And like I said, I also want to reiterate the importance of, that goal. Because for me, even when I started, I knew people I wanted to talk to because I wanted to learn about the culture of these schools. I knew people I wanted to talk to because I know after like a couple of minutes, I'm going to pivot to talking about like my career plans when I get to that school, and also because I'm married. Like I knew that at some point in time, my wife would also be with me. I also wanted to just know how that was. So all these various people, I was reaching out to them based on some of these specific goals, and sometimes I was lucky that some of my goals like had some intersection, and I would get someone who would be able to touch across all of these goals. So I think that's also something that you should always keep in mind as well.
Right. Thank you, GP and Remy. It's very, very important to focus on that common ground. I feel it's one of the things that helps you to lower the barriers in terms of networking. Because even last year, I sent a message out to like an admissions office. And what I noticed is because of the kind of things I stated in my first email, the person that called me was an alum of my school. And, it made it quite easy, like speaking with a Nigerian on the other side of things, and, having them explain some of all these things. So thank you. Now, I have a question I'm going to take. And this was one of the questions in the chat box. So Remy, I'm going to ask you first. And the question says, how do you reach out to someone or people you've not spoken to in a while to network and request for help without coming off as being transactional? There are two questions actually. So I don't know if I should take the two of them or you answer this one first.
No, I can start off with this one.
Okay.
So
all right.
If I understand the question correctly, that means that you've reached out to this person before, and yeah, and then you want to reach out to them again. Honestly, the way I even do this type of thing in my own personal life is that if I know I need to ask someone for something, as long as it's not urgent, if I need this thing, say like the end of June, and I haven't connected with them in a while, I'll probably reach out to them first because, like this is, and just asking, just giving them a general update, because I figure that you are not close with this person, just giving them a general update, regarding either like the admission process or whatever it is that we talked the last time. And after that, I will then wait, and then maybe after a couple of weeks again, then reach out to them that, based on something I had said to you the last time, I would be grateful, if we can have some time to talk and all of that. That's one piece of it. And the other piece of it is that, I've been in this boat before, someone that I reached out to during my recruiting time. And for some strange reason, I totally forgot, to reconnect with the person. Eventually, when I wanted to reconnect with the person, my friend was going to the same company and he wanted me to connect, both of them. And, I reached out to this person, and till today, this person hasn't replied me. So what I would say is that, and as much as possible, even with networking, there will be some fails, there will be some, mistakes that you will make. And I would implore you that don't take it, of course, reflect on it, but don't let it dampen your spirit, because I feel that for most of us, this is like a learning process, and the more you do it, the more you're going to get better. So that's my answer.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Remy. GP, I don't know if you have something to add to that before I ask the second question.
I think Remy hit the middle point, but one thing I just want to add is, yes, you might have the luxury of time, but some people might not have the luxury of time to build that relationship. It might be something really urgent. My advice in general when it comes to things like that is just be truthful. Come up to the conversation and tell the person, I really know that we haven't spoken in a while. I'm really sorry about this, but this is an update of where I am in my life as of now, but I still need your help. And this is what I need right now. just be truthful and be as empathetic as possible in that conversation. So just let the person know that, oh, this is the situation of things and this is the help I need right now. And subsequently, if the person responds to you and the person grants you your request, just be a nice person and cultivate that relationship. At least keep in touch after that. Don't just let it be a simple, just using him anytime you want it.
Yeah, thank you, GP. This is very, very important because I know there's sometimes I'm with a couple of colleagues and they get a call from someone and the next thing they say is, oh, this person wants something. You don't want to be that kind of person because you then will be labeled as someone who only reaches out when they need something. It's very important to have that kind of exchange. Okay, so Remy, I would also, the second question says, how do you practically keep in touch with many people at a time? In this case, it's about, when you're networking or how, you have like a couple of people that you're speaking to at the same time. How do you, multitask in such a way that you still keep a very organic and very close connection, something very cordial to create that connection whilst talking to several people at the same time?
There are various ways. Like I've seen a few of my friends, they have like a Google Sheet where when they speak to someone, they just log the person's like name, and then maybe the details of what they talked about. For me, what I just try to do is that when I get in touch with, like I think when I was applying, Zoom was not really a thing, even though Zoom was available, but most of the time, it's either people give you their number or like at least I would say 90% of the people I spoke to, like I spoke, with them either on iMessage or on WhatsApp, and even when people reach out to me, like that's always like the best way that I do that. So because of that, I had like when I speak to someone, I always save the name of the school. Like, so I save, Oluremi Onitila, like I'll put talk or put that in or put, one of these schools. And personally, like what I then do is that every weekend, this is just my own life. Like I open my phone and then I then start to think of like, reaching out to my family. And then in that process, I then reach out to these people. But what I did, when I was applying was that I knew that I was going to get admissions into some places and I wasn't going to get admission. So I had put on my calendar that at this point in time, I would reach out, to people from these schools, regardless of, what the outcome would be. So that's one. So that's one way. And another way is that, when you also speak to someone, like you can always quickly go to like a calendar, or if you had like a diary, type of person, just to put it, to update them on. And it's very, honestly, I don't know what other way, but it's very hard. But at the same time, by the time you do it, if you speak to 40 people or 20 people, after a while, you would know the people that you naturally vibe with. And then it would be easier for you to continue to keep the relationship, with that person. So there are some people that when I send them like like an update on my admissions, it's like, oh, thanks, for letting me know. And there are some people who would like, oh, that's great. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be happy to connect with you. So like, I know for those type of people, like I would definitely, put some efforts into continue to reaching out to them.
Thank you, Remy. GP, anything you want to add or your own take on that?
I think Remy said it all, but personally, what I do is, look, it's tough, especially when as you continue to grow in your career, you get to meet a lot of people. And keeping up with those people can be really, really challenging. Personally, what I just do is, yes, there's some people I talk to every day. There's some people I talk to like at least once in a week. But what I just do is I try to make it an habit. If there's any holiday or any memorable event that's occurring, just go through my contacts and say, oh, let me just wish all these people I haven't spoken to in a while happy holidays or happy whatever it is. Last year, what I did, this was in my second year of my MBA program. What I did was there were some people that I hadn't spoken to in a while, but they were really important in my career path so far. What I did was, it was Christmas. I just sent Christmas cards to every one of them. Yes, I know that might not be something that everyone can do, but you should just to reach out during Christmas and send a Christmas message. Just wait for that period of time, have conversations with them, give them an update where you are or how far you've gone in your particular career goals and stuff like that. Just have a brief conversation. Those people already know that you're not going to reach out to them every time, but they know that you are, at least once in a while, you have them at the back of your mind and you're still able to reach out to them.
Okay, thank you. In case you're just joining us, we have GP God's Power and Remy speaking to us about the impact of networking on MBA applications. I have an interesting question here, and it says, is it a good idea to reach out to someone on Facebook or via DM on Instagram? I know, I know at the beginning of the webinar, we talked about, ensuring that you create a meeting calendar and reaching out to people on LinkedIn and all that. But this person is saying, is it a good idea to reach out to someone on Facebook or via Instagram DM? So who wants to go first?
Okay, let me just go first. Look, I can't tell you you shouldn't reach out to someone on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. I can't tell you that because people have successfully networked on this platform. But my idea is about networking on those other social media is how important is it? Is it a professional? What's the goal? Is it a professional setting I'm about to reach out to you? If it's a professional or a career setting, what I would advise for you to do is before you reach out to someone on all those platforms, you will want to look at your profile on those platforms. First, you want to look at the posts you've made on this platform. Who do you come out as if you reach out to someone on this platform before you actually go ahead to reach out to them on this platform? That's just my general advice. But if you think, oh, yes, your Facebook or your Instagram profile tells who you are and there's nothing bad about it, especially in your admissions phase, if you think you have a good profile that doesn't have any negativities or any politically inclined conversations or posts you've made in the past, and you think you have a very, very professional profile, please reach out to them because these schools are actually advertising on Instagram, they're advertising on Facebook, they're advertising their programs. So you can connect to them via those mediums. You just need to know that you have to look at what your profile says about you, and if that's the picture you want to paint when you're having that conversation with the person.
Thank you, GP. Remy?
I don't think there's anything else to add. So.
Okay. All right then. So we have another question that says, when do you start connecting with alumni? So alumni of the school, they are like so treasured, especially if your school is Ivy League or, top 10, top 7, there's this care that a lot of people take, ensuring that you reach out to alumni, you have the a very good first impression, you have very original touchdowns with them, and just make yourself memorable. So perhaps if you see them someday at a networking mixer, you can, approach them in person and have a favorable response. So how and when do you start connecting with alumni if you're looking to apply for an MBA? Remy?
What I tell people is I think I would say 2 to 3 months, and the reason why I say that is that
Months before you
yeah
applied or
yeah like before the round that you are applying in.
for the round
Yeah,
you're applying.
yeah,
Okay.
because why I say that is that, at that time, obviously this is not a timeline that most people follow. Like at that time, it's either you've already started, narrowing down on the schools, or like you've already started thinking, okay, this is going to be my application game plan, and you want to have spoken to them well enough and to understand the school well enough so that even when you start to maybe write your essays, it feels very organic, because some people like even admissions team usually talk about the fact that they want to know that you've done your research, and that research, naturally the best place that you would first show it would be in your essay. When either you're answering a question, you're talking about the reason why you want to attend that school, and you can reference an alum. Honestly, from my own perspective, I know that, some alums, like, they will reach out to the school generally to say, oh, I spoke to this person, and I feel that this person would be a great, addition to our school. And some schools, would ask you to feel like if you've spoken to any alum on the website. So what I would say is that it's if you do it too far out, like by the time, like the alum will probably be maybe curious, or the current student may be curious that, oh, why is this person maybe reaching out to me? But, if you also do it too close, that may also not, give you the effect that you're looking for. So I would say maybe anything from three 3 months and 2 months, reach out to the person and then let them know
Around,
that
yeah.
you're applying, like you're applying to, or thinking of applying, for this particular round, so that at least there's a marker in their mind to know that, okay, this is good.
Great. GP,
All right.
connecting with alumni.
Just to record what Remy has said, yes, especially in the admissions phase, the closer it is to your your application turning in, the better for you. But I also just want to say this: it depends on the objective of the connection with the alum. If you think you're just having a conversation or connecting with them just to even get an idea about how the school is, and just to know if you're even interested in that school, you can go a bit earlier. You can connect with them a bit earlier. But if you want them to actually make a comment about your application, or have a higher chance of them commenting on your application, then the closer to you turning in the application, the better.
Mm, mm. Yeah, speaking of alumni, I know that Penn State SMIL has the whole Penn State environment, the area has, a lot of specifics on things like finance and, equity backgrounds and all that. Now, I was going to ask, in terms of your own experience, how did you, how receptive were the alumni, and then how did you pick? Did you say I'm picking someone who is like very recognized, or am I picking someone who finished very recently, or what was the thing for you in your own situation?
So, just to be clear, are you referring to during my application phase? Or just how generally the alumni network is receptive to people reaching out to them?
Hello?
Hi, Franklin, did you get what I said?
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right. So I was asking if you were making reference to my personal experience during my application phase, or you just want to know how receptive the alumni network is in general.
I'm speaking of your own experience during your application phase.
Okay, all right, all right. So to me, when I applied, honestly, I'm going to be truthful to everyone on this call. When I applied to Penn State was one of the last schools I applied to. And I turned in my application sometime in December. And before that, I'd already started having interview calls with different schools. And Penn State honestly was not a school I was actually looking out for at that particular moment. But what I did was I had a conversation with someone, and the person was a friend of the person I used to work with at PwC. So it was a childhood friend of a colleague of mine, and the person was really receptive. He told me about his own experience during the program, how he actually prepared for the interview and the entire admissions process. And it was a very, very useful, informative conversation because I just used that as a guide in putting the right application in. Yes, and I made reference to him in my application saying, I spoke to this person and he told me this and this and this about this and this and this about the school. And I was actually looking forward to actually going into the program. And honestly, it was not a long conversation. It was a short conversation, but it was very, very useful to me.
Okay. Remy, do you have any takes on that?
So
your own experience. Yeah.
Yeah, my experience. So for me, I had applied a year before, before this last one that got me in, and there were so many lessons I got from that. I only spoke to people who were not even in the MBA programs that I was applying for. So by the time I was coming in the second time, I just picked 3 schools that I wanted to apply to. And I started, I think, at the end of June that particular year, because I knew I wanted to apply for round 1, and most round 1, usually happen in September. And I went to all the websites of the school first, just looking at who is in charge of their Africa Business Club. And eventually, I picked a couple of people. I started speaking with them. And what had happened was that the more people I spoke with, there were some particular people who just took an interest in me naturally. And, for some of them, it was because, like some of the work that I was doing in Nestle, was something that they had done before. And also the industry I wanted to recruit for, was an industry that they were also recruiting for at that particular point in time. But what I would say is that for each of the schools, there was one person that I felt that I connected with that changed sort of like the game for me. Because at that time, I just believed that, okay, any of these schools, I'm ready to go. But for talk that eventually came to, one thing that really, made that decision, very specific for me was that there was this lady I had spoken to. Everybody I had spoken to, they were very upfront with me to tell me about how competitive the program is. And every time, there was just this innate fear that I had was whether, I had the qualification to get into this program. But then I spoke to this lady, Nigerian American. She made me feel as if I can do this thing. And that really helped me, because at that time it felt like I had an ally, and after that, every week I was just reaching out.
A lot of people, it depends on how active the person is on LinkedIn. A lot of people have thousands of requests. And if you don't have a short note that actually reminds them of, where we initially connected, or why you're even trying to connect with them, a lot of people just leave those empty requests and don't even attend to them. I've spoken to a recruiter once who was telling me that she had over 6,000 invites on LinkedIn. That there's no way she's going to accept 6,000 people on her LinkedIn. That's
right.
It. And people who have actually written notes that are things that she actually connects with. That's how she sees through the invite and just accepts those people. So you want write a short note. I know LinkedIn has, I think your initial
the option of sending a note.
And it's always, the number of characters is usually limited. So try as much as possible to be short, precise, and leave something that is memorable for the person. Leave something that the person would always want to have that initial meet or connection with you.
Thank you so much, GP. Remy?
So some of the things that I would say also would echo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm sure
all right.
can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I'm having an echo here. I'm sorry. Okay. So some of the things that I would say would echo GP. But what I always tell people as well is that GP talked about looking for common areas of interest. What I also say is that most of the time people usually focused on LinkedIn at the detriment of other social networks. I remember one of the first people that I connected with at Talk, and it was because I was following Talk on Instagram, and they had shared like a story about this person, and then I realized that this person was going to work at Nestle for his internship, and at that time, I was in Nestle. So for me, it was just interesting because immediately I knew that I just went to the Nestle system and then I just searched for this person's name and I reached out to him, through that instead of even sending me a message on LinkedIn. So, beyond LinkedIn, because, most of the time the stuff that you will probably see on LinkedIn, may be very professional, but at the same time, you want to look for common areas of interest. There are some schools that if you go to, like the type of interest or what you will see what people are doing for fun, would even tell you whether this is a place where you can really thrive. And that is always a great place and a great opportunity to also, connect with people. And like I said, I also want to reiterate the importance of, that goal, because for me, even when I started, I knew people I wanted to talk to because I wanted to learn about the culture of these schools. I knew people I wanted to talk to because I know after like a couple of minutes, I'm going to pivot to talking about like my career plans when I get to that school, and also because I'm married. Like I knew that at some point in time, my wife would also be with me. I also wanted to just know how that was. So all these various people, I was reaching out to them based on some of these specific goals, and sometimes I was lucky that some of my goals like had some intersection, and I would get someone who would be able to touch across all of these goals. So I think that's also something that you should always keep in mind as well.
Right. Thank you, GP and Remy. It's very, very important to focus on that common ground. I feel it's one of the things that helps you to lower the barriers in terms of networking. Because even last year, I sent a message out to like an admissions office. And what I noticed is because of the kind of things I stated in my first email, the person that called me was an alum of my school. And, it made it quite easy, like speaking with a Nigerian on the other side of things, and, having them explain some of all these things. So thank you. Now, I have a question I'm going to take. And this was one of the questions in the chat box. So Remy, I'm going to ask you first. And the question says, how do you reach out to someone or people you've not spoken to in a while to network and request for help without coming off as being transactional? There are two questions actually. So I don't know if I should take the two of them or you answer this one first.
No, I can start off with this one.
Okay.
So
all right.
If I understand the question correctly, that means that you've reached out to this person before, and yeah, and then you want to reach out to them again. Honestly, the way I even do this type of thing in my own personal life is that if I know I need to ask someone for something, I as long as it's not urgent, if I need this thing, say like the end of June, and I haven't connected with them in a while, I'll probably reach out to them first because, like this is, and just asking, just giving them a general update, because I figure that you are not close with this person, just giving them a general update, regarding either like the admission process or whatever it is that we talked the last time. And after that, I will then wait, and then maybe after a couple of weeks again, then reach out to them that, oh, based on something I had said to you the last time, I would be grateful, if we can have some time to talk and all of that. That's one piece of it. And the other piece of it is that, I've been in this boat before, someone that I reached out to during my recruiting time. And for some strange reason, I totally forgot, to reconnect with the person. Eventually, when I wanted to reconnect with the person, my friend was going to the same company and he wanted me to connect, both of them. And, I reached out to this person, and till today, this person hasn't replied me. So what I would say is that, and as much as possible, even with networking, there will be some fails, there will be some, mistakes that you'll make. And I would implore you that don't take it, of course, reflect on it, but don't let it dampen your spirit, because I feel that for most of us, this is like a learning process, and the more you do it, the more you're going to get better. So that's fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Remy. GP, I don't know if you have something to add to that before I ask the second question.
I think Remy hit the major points, but one thing I just want to add is, yes, you might have the luxury of time, but some people might not have the luxury of time to build that relationship. It might be something really urgent. My advice in general, when it comes to things like that, is just be truthful. Come up to the conversation and tell the person, oh, I really know that we haven't spoken in a while. I'm really sorry about this, but this is an update of where I am in my life as of now, but I still need your help. And this is what I need right now. Just be truthful and be as empathetic as possible in that conversation. So just let the person know that, oh, this is the situation of things and this is the help I need right now. And subsequently, if the person responds to you and the person grants you your request, just be a nice person and cultivate that relationship. At least keep in touch after that. Don't just let it be a simple, just using it anytime you want it. And things that I should be looking out for. And I think I had a particular person who was an ex-PwC person, and I had his MBA in, I can't remember this school now, one of the Ivy League schools. And it gave me a lot of insight into the program. And I think that his insights were really, really valuable in helping me target the schools that I eventually reached out to, and access to other information that I never thought I needed at that particular point in my application stage. And that person was a resource I kept on leveraging throughout my time in the MBA program.
Oh, okay. So thank you, GP and Remy. We have a question from Daniel, and the question says, how do you get an alumni to review your application? Do you say that the first time you reach out? How do you introduce it? I think this is very, very direct. So how do you get an alum to review your application? Or is it even right to have an alum review application? What's your take on it?
Okay, I think I can take that. Sure.
Oh, GP, anyone?
All right. So my own advice is, it depends on the relationship you have with the alum. It depends on the relationship you've cultivated. If it's someone that is just new, you're meeting for the first time, you don't want the person to review your application because it doesn't even know you from Adam. So what you want to do is, if you've built a relationship over time, you can ask the person, oh, please take a look at my application. This is what I'm trying to put in. this is my strong suit, or this is my experience, this is how I'm writing the essay, and stuff like that. So if you have a good relationship with the person, or you think you've built the relation, and look, all these things, there's no specific time to it. You as a person in that relationship will know yourself if you've gotten to that stage where you can ask the person for that. So it depends on the situation. If you think you're at the stage in the relationship where you can ask for that, please go ahead and ask. Reviewing it can only make your application stronger when someone actually take a look at it. So to me, you have nothing to lose as long as you've built the right relationship with the person.
The relationship.
If you've not, you can just ask the person, after your initial conversation or after a conversation, you can just ask the person that, it would be fine if I can just mention you as one of the people I've spoken to in my application. And most people are usually fine with that. So go ahead and do that. But for me, for someone to in detail review your application, I'm sure you as a person in that relationship would know if you're at that stage to ask for that.
Right. I think it's very, very important to also watch it in terms of not overstepping, boundaries, because some people get very, very touchy on some certain things. You never know what's going to set someone off as. Remy, what's your take on this?
So what I would say is that when you feel that you're at a level to ask someone for that type of help, I think you would know. And, so that's one piece that I would say. And the second is that if you are not sure whether you're at that level, I think you can ask the person, it's either yes or no. And, if the person says yes, really good for your application. And if the person says no, I think just, thank them and, appreciate them for all that they've done already. Yeah. So.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Now, there's another question that says, this question is directed to you, GP, specifically to you. And this is Truth asking, why did you eventually decide not to go to the other schools that you had application? Like, why did you pick, out of all the schools you applied to, Penn State Mill, College of Business? Why not the other one? And I don't know if you're open to sharing what other schools you applied to, but yeah, why did you pick this particular school?
I'll be real with everyone on this call. So I chose Penn State because, like I said, I reached out to the admissions office, and my initial conversation with the head of admissions was wonderful. Honestly, if not for that conversation, I'm sure I would have never gone to Penn State. It showed how the community, look, my initial conversation with, the person's name is Michael. So my initial conversation with Michael was really, really good. Honestly, prior to that, I wasn't looking at Penn State. I attended one of their webinars and it was fine. But when I had that initial conversation with Michael, he told me about the program. It brought a spark into the conversation that made me just fall in love with the school. It was that simple. He told me about the community. He told me about, yes, other things that the other schools I was looking at were going to give me. But he told me, yes, we will not be able to match all this. But I can tell you that in Penn State, you have that sense of community. And look, prior to my MBA, I was working at PwC. I had all the basic finance knowledge, I needed to be successful in a career in finance. And I just wanted an MBA program where I could have more. It was not just about, the education or the faculty. It was about the community. I was there to meet people. I was there to foster relationship and bond with new people. And Michael was the first step or an intro into that environment and into that culture. And I think that sticks with me. But to crown it all up, the thing that actually sealed the deal, look, Michael spoke beautifully about the school. And yes, the school is great. The thing that sealed the deal was I got a good scholarship from the school, and I literally didn't have to pay anything to go to get an MBA. So I think that just sealed the deal for me, and it was just fantastic. Oh, you said I should mention other schools I applied to. Other school. I applied to Orleans, I applied to Ohio State. My application was, okay, to give you more insight, my admission, my MBA admission was a bit different because my drive to get the MBA at the particular time I did was because my wife was already in an MBA program in the US. And I think I was tired of the whole long distance thing with Nigeria. And I said, okay, let's go. I need to move closer to this person I'm married to. And so most of the schools I chose were schools that were around my wife that would give me easy access to go see my wife at any point.
Right.
So that limited the schools I applied to, schools that I knew that they're either bus ride or easy drive from our school. So that limited the choices I had, and Penn State gave me the best out of all those at that particular time. So that's why I chose Penn State, even though I had different personal things that led me to the school. But I can say that my conversation with Michael about the community and spending 2 years in the program, actually, everything he said was actually true because I fostered relationship with everyone in my class. Yes, the Penn State program is not large. We're just 16 in our class, but it was 60 people I knew I knew a lot about. Don't let me say I knew everything about them. I knew a lot about, and people that I knew I could always call to have a conversation with at any particular point in time. I could always ask them for help and stuff like that. And I think it was a great experience for me.
Thank you so much, GP, for sharing. Okay, Remy, the question directed to you, and we'll take this as we begin to wrap up, is what, if you're, please indulge us, if you're free to do so, what other 2 schools did you apply to, and why did you eventually pick Talk? So I guess it's like something very similar to the question posed to GP as well. What other schools did you apply to, and then why did you decide on Talk?
I applied to Duke, and then I applied to Darden UVA. For me, why did I pick Talk? So I think, first of all, it came down to how much I got in terms of scholarship money. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is that Talk only has one MBA program. They don't have a part-time MBA. They don't have an executive MBA. They don't have anything else. So the focus on the program is on parallel. And that was something that I was looking at as well. Like, the faculties are just there for just the first year and the second year, and like the staff, the school. So that was part of
it. Great. Thank you so much. We have, all through today, we've been speaking with God's Power and Remy, and speaking on impact of networking on MBA application. So we have just a couple of questions left. So I'll just ask this question. In terms of networking and everyone planning on, speak to people, email, call, have, connections and all that. There are a lot of people probably will be wondering, why should I even engage in networking events in the first place? Why should I reach out to people? And what impact does this have on my admission acceptance, getting a scholarship, and impacting on internship and post-MBA recruitment as well? Because, what we're looking at the long term, the long game. What do you think, or what's your take on the impact of networking on getting an admission acceptance, getting a scholarship or internship, and post-MBA recruitment? The GP?
Okay. To me, networking is critical at every stage of your career. For the admission phase, networking actually helps put eye on your resume, on your application. So if you have networked with people in the admissions office, you've networked with alums, and alums have mentioned to the admissions office that, oh, look out for this person's application. They actually go out and look out for your application. I can share an experience with you. There was a prospective candidate that applied to Penn State, and the person was just waiting endlessly to get the application actually reviewed. Honestly, at the particular time the person applied to the school, the class was almost filled. The person reached out to me, spoke to me, and said, oh, he's really shared his passion about the school to me. And I felt, okay, this person would actually be a great addition to the program. What I did was I just walked upstairs to the head of admissions, and I had a conversation with the person about the head of admissions about the candidate that reached out to me. And what happened was the next day, the person actually got an interview invite. The application was reviewed that day, and the person got an invitation for interview the next day. So yes, wow. The application might be the numerous applications that go to the school. And as much as they try as much as possible to sift through each of those applications, honestly, some might fall through the crack. But if you have someone who is there fighting for you and who you've networked with and is there always fighting for you, honestly, it gives you an advantage over other people. When I spoke to the admissions person about the qualities that I could see that the person demonstrated on the call and different subsequent conversations I had with the person actually felt that, what the head of admissions told me was, look, we try as much as possible to go through these applications and get the best candidates in. But you people who are currently in the program, if you feel someone is actually a great addition to this program, all I can do is to listen to you. Because you guys you've taken time to build that relationship. Most of the interactions they have with you is your application. And someone that has actually spoken to you and know more about you and can tell them and pass that message across to them, they actually cherish those kind of interactions.
Wow.
After your admissions,
yes,
looking for internship, to me, networking is critical. I'm sure Remy also have a lot of stories you can share about this. But if there's any story I'm going to share about networking in your first year when you're looking for an internship and stuff, there was a day I was just having a conversation with my wife and one of our friends. We were talking about a particular company that one of their friends got an internship with. Honestly, I didn't know about the company. I heard the company for the first time in that conversation. I was looking for an internship. Yes, I was not particular about, as an international student, I was not particular about, it had to be this particular company. Because when you get into the program, you know that there are some limitations you get as an international student. Honestly, what I just did was I heard about the company from that conversation. I went on LinkedIn, looked for alums from my school. Honestly, I couldn't find any alum that was closely related to the business unit I was actually looking out for. So what I just did was I reached out to the head of university recruiting on LinkedIn, sent her a message. The next thing was instantly she responded saying, nice to meet you and stuff like that. I told her, I was interested in this MBA posting I saw online. She said, fantastic. She looked at my profile. She said, you look like a good candidate. Next thing she did was sent me the email address of the recruiter that was in charge of that particular job posting. From there, the conversation went on.
Wow.
All I was doing was just listening to people having conversations, and I took the step to actually reach out to someone in the organization. Eventually, yes, I did go to that company. During my own internship at Microsoft, if there's anything I can tell you is networking does not end. That's why you need to start getting used to it. Networking doesn't end. Throughout, my greatest regret from my internship was I did not network enough. Yes, I networked. I spoke to people across the organization and stuff, but when I took like an inventory of what I did during my internship, my only regret was I wish I actually networked more. Yes, I got a return offer from the company, but I wish I networked more. And I know that when I eventually resume there, I know that I already have a game plan on how I'm going to network across the organization, because if there's anything I can tell you in the US, if you don't ask for things, if you don't meet people, you don't have people who are actually rooting for you, mentors across the organization, look, your career, you might think you're best at what you're doing, but your career might not actually reflect that. So networking is key at every stage of your career. And my advice is start now, try to put into practice some of these things we've spoken about, and just try to make it an habit of yours. And you'll see that eventually it just becomes a part of you, and it will just all work out well.
No, thank you so much, GP. Remy, very quickly, what specific impact did your networking efforts have on your admission, getting a scholarship or internship?
So like I've shared different stories about, you know, some of the things that I like, the people who helped me when I was applying, and during my own internship recruitment as well. Like the industry that I recruited for is very networking heavy, and you know, it's not so much even about like, oh, the amazing experience that you had. Like when it's time to decide who is going to interview, you know, they just send an email to the company to say, oh, do you know this person? Did you speak to this person? And the cumulative nature of that process is what would determine if you are going to get called to an interview. So it's a lifelong skill. And you know, like when I got invited for this thing, this program, one book that I kept remembering was what's his name, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a good practice. Like, you know, almost all the great presidents that you've known, whether the evil ones or the strong ones or the ones that people remember, a huge part of their success in perpetrating the evil or succeeding, you know, was part networking. And as you move up in life as well, like it will be less about your technical skills and what you know, and it will be how many people you can bring together to be able to achieve something. So
thank you, Remy and God's Power. It's been such an amazing and insightful session. Speaking on how to network and the impact that has on your profile, both as an MBA applicant or as an MBA student. Really, closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to open your mouth, like, and talk and reach out to people, and ensure that you do it in the right way as well. So I would like to say thank you for, you know, giving us your time to speak to us on this. And I would say that I personally have learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone who has been with us from start to finish has also learned a thing or two. I don't know if Samuel has a few things to say to close out.
Except for goodbye, nothing much. You guys have done incredibly well. I've also learned a lot for my own experience as well. So thank you, Remy. Someone's asking for Remy's full name.